I'm Robert Bean, and this is Focus, Purpose and Leadership. I decided to create this podcast because in my 40-year career in the advertising and brand strategy worlds, I've come to learn about the fundamental importance of clarity and purpose, or in my terms, the value of having a single organising principle, one that influences a business's culture, its products and services, and its reputation. In this series, I'll be chatting with CEOs and leaders who have put it into practice whilst developing their own successful businesses. In this episode, I talked to Eric Partaker, founder and CEO of the Chilango Mexican restaurant chain. We met at their original site in Islington's noisy and bustling Upper Street. In it, he talks about his passion for product quality and how even in the toughest times, they refuse to compromise. If you've never tasted one of their burritos, do yourself a favour. It's not described as a stampede of flavours in your mouth for nothing. Eric, 12 years, nearly a teenager, the business. Mm-hmm. Can you take us back to the start, either when you first met Dan or perhaps more importantly, when you first realised you thought there was an opportunity in doing what you do?
I get asked this question quite a lot, and the reason Chilango started and the reason it's what it is today goes back to Dan and I forming, a pact or a business partnership really early on. So we were working together at Skype in its very early days, and that was just an absolute rocket ship of a journey. We joined Skype and there was 30-some people in the London office. Within a bit more than a year of joining, it was sold to eBay for a multi-billion-dollar transaction. And we got so fired up that we knew, based on the experience in that environment and the excitement of it all, that we had to do our own thing. So we literally had a handshake across the street from Skype's office in a cafe one day where we agreed that whoever had an idea first would tell the other. And then if we liked that, we'd start that business together.
Great.
And that's literally why this business started. So
who was it? You or him that had the thunderbolt?
So handshake in place, packed, sealed, and then one day as I sat on my sofa in a studio apartment at the time, and I thought, when did I have the most fun in life? And it was when I had worked in restaurants and bars, because I thought about this place La Bamba that I was going to in college for burritos after the bars, and I thought, I really miss those burritos. And then I had this light bulb moment, and I thought, wait a second, there's no place to get a good burrito here in London. And so I went back to the office the next day, and I said to Dan, I have an idea. How about we go into Mexican food and open up a burrito place? And then he got so excited about it that he actually quit Skype ahead of me to start looking for our first site. And that first site is where we're sitting right now, so this Upper Street restaurant. So yeah, that's the journey.
And so here we are just 12 years later with 11 now, isn't it? 11 sites, which is a pretty good strike rate looking back, isn't it? I mean, one a year from little funding.
Yeah, you write the business plan and then you throw it out the window, I guess. A myriad of things happen along the way. We've kind of weathered 2 different economic storms. We have some great people, great product, great brand. All restaurants are profitable. Our like-for-like sales are positive. So we're in a good place to accelerate our growth now. But that's through a lot of trial and tribulation over the years.
Well, perhaps we could come back to that. I mean, I'd sort of give you fair warning that discussing some of the mistakes along the way might make more interesting copy than the endless success. Because, there's lots of the success. But it might be quite interesting to go back and go,
definitely,
I wish we hadn't done that, or I'm pleased we did that. But before we get there, can I just talk about the product first? Well, 2 parts to it, actually. What do you describe it as? I mean, it's more than Mexican fast food, or what nomenclature do you give it?
Yeah, quick service Mexican. I describe the the food is restaurant quality food served at fast food pace.
Yeah.
Burritos, tacos, nachos, salads.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly my experience of that is, and the restaurants themselves are laid out that way, aren't they? So the operative word in that was quality then. I mean, I certainly remember conversations years ago with you guys, and you'll forgive me for having forgotten the numbers, but the breakdown of cost in the product was way disproportionately in favour of the food, the quality of the food. I mean, it was out of kilter.
Initially, when we started, our food cost as a percent of sales in some weeks was as high as 50%.
Yeah.
Which is not a sustainable business. It's it's not even a business.
Yeah.
It's hosing away money.
Yeah.
Now it's about 25%, and now after food and labor taken together, we still walk away with 55%, which is pretty pretty remarkable for a business of our size. Yeah. But it didn't start that way, because I guess our philosophy was, if you start with enough goodness and greatness and kind of chisel down from there, you'll end up with something far greater than trying to continually improve or polish the masterpiece. So start with something great and work your way down. And what I mean by that is a few things. So we chose to source certain parts of the menu or ingredients which are absolutely critical to the flavor directly from farmers in Mexico, so that we could guarantee the quality of the product, such as the chilies that go in our meat marinades. We've used world-class culinary talent along the way. Nuno Mendez is a Michelin-starred chef. He's both a friend of the business and an incredible contributor in that he's did a lot of our initial menu development. And then on an ongoing basis, another friend of the business is the former senior development director for the Fat Duck. So we don't just put forth a simple menu and try to keep it as static as possible to maximize the profit. So on a quarterly basis, we're also putting out new things on the menu, experimenting, and that comes with cost as well. We also see it positively reflected on the sales side, though, too, in that it attracts more people in. That was one of the big takeaways from working at Skype. Product quality first, wrapped in a brand that people will love second.
So were you conscious of that from the start then, and that was kind of spoken about between you kind of daily, as it were? Yeah,
absolutely. So the food quality and specifically taste, because it's ultimately, in our belief, about flavor, was the main focus for the whole year before opening, and still for the first year or two after opening, to the point that everything else looked awful. But within 5 months of opening, the food was so good and we had so many rave reviews that suddenly we're cooking, on national television with Tana Ramsey, and invited to participate in a show at the time called Market Kitchen. And around the same time, we had our first big investment offer, which is a good segue to our first massive mistake, which was...
I don't even need to ask. Go on, tell us.
Well, had we not got that offer, we had basically run out of cash, underestimated our costs, overestimated the revenues, and that food quality saved us in the end. Not only attracted on the PR side, the TV appearances, of course, driven by all the raving reviews from our guests and fans at the time, but it was also the thing that gave the prospective investors faith that the rest of the business would take shape, because the most important thing,
was
great tasting food,
was delivering where it had to. Yeah. And so over the years, then, to have got that balance more, the fiscal balance in the product makeup, without compromise. How's that come about then? Is that just sheer volume means the way you can buy helps even out the balance, or what have you done? Less waste?
So it was tough in the beginning because, as I said, we were losing a lot of money. And it was well known in the market that Chilango didn't make any money. But we stuck with it. And as our volumes grew, our purchasing power grew, so we were able to get some of the ingredients at a lower price. As our expertise grew, we came up with new ways to create and change the process in which things were created that would enhance flavor through our own experimentation, through the advice of some of the Michelin-starred culinary talent that sits behind us.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that mistake and maybe others in a bit. At what point in the development of the business was the brand crystallized in your mind to a point of articulation and useful usage that you could start using it to build a team, for instance, or to position? Or was that from day one with you and Dan? Or
no? So when we first launched, the restaurant was called Mucho Mas. Just means much more. Sounds like a discount shop, and it looked like one too. Our first online review said, "Oh my God, who just opened this eyesore in Angel?" So I guess the first big evolution was the name and the initial design, and that was the change from Mucho Mas to Chilango, which is inspired by a trip from Mexico City. The term for someone from Mexico City is a Chilango, and we love the vibrancy of Mexico City, so we said why not have that represent the restaurant. And that brought with it a very colorful palette, a high energy kind of like look and feel. The first bit of life, the first kind of direction in a branded offering. But something was still missing there. We all didn't have a common language or a way of very quickly talking about what the brand was or stood for. And then it was Mark McCullough actually that talked about some of the amazing work that you had done. That was probably that was the next big game changer for us, was to crystallize that brand down to the single organizing principle, as you say, or its essence, and really nail it down to vibrancy as a word, and that not only informed the brand but also the other side of the coin, the culture. And that's where, to your point about are the people important? Absolutely. But before you have a good sense of your brand, people are important in a more functional way. Once you have a sense of your brand, they suddenly become more important in an attitudinal or emotional way. And so we added an audition element to our interview process to uncover vibrant personality. It was one of the best interviews I still remember to this day. Was so we had this question in the interview process: bring along your favorite T-shirt to the interview, and then during the interview we'd ask the person to present their T-shirt. And different people do really crazy things. So they might sing a song, they might tell an elaborate story. But this one particular guy, I said, "So did you bring your favorite T-shirt?" And he's like, "Sorry." And then he unzips his shirt, and underneath is revealed a T-shirt that says, "I didn't have a favorite T-shirt, so I got this one made." And I just thought, genius.
Great, yeah. It flushes them out, doesn't it? Yeah.
So vibrancy for us became the official kind of brand flag. I mean, it was something that was already there. We just hadn't given it a name. But once we did, then the goal was to, as if it was a paintbrush, is our food as vibrant as it can be? Are our people as vibrant as they can be? Are the restaurants as vibrant as they can be? And the felt sense for our guests is that your world should be literally brightened up by the vibrancy of Chilango. So, in a poetic way, it kind of made things super easy. And then it allowed us to start making decisions faster. So another example would be, we tend to lean towards the bolder flavors. And you might say, "Oh, well, doesn't everybody?" No, they don't. A lot of people looking for mass market propositions will really water things down. And I don't mean water them down in a cheap quality way. I just simply mean...
go for the middle.
A flavor that will work as well for, say, a 5-year-old as it will for a 55-year-old. And that's quite a wide range. And so we'd be testing chicken marinades, and we'd get a chicken marinade and be like, "Ooh, that's a little spicy," or that might be a bit too much. And then in that moment, we'd say, "And therefore, that's the one."
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
The magic in name. They say you don't understand until you can name it, and it's so profound actually that by placing a name on it, on whatever it is, it starts to take you down these paths. It saved you from watering down in that instance because you gave it a name.
Yeah. And the really exciting thing now is how we've more recently extended what does vibrancy mean from a cultural point of view. So initially vibrancy was simply, does the person have a vibrant personality? Do they have the hospitality gene? Do they have infectious enthusiasm? Do they just smile naturally? And that's all very kind of in the moment stuff. But then we started to think a bit more philosophically on what does it mean to live vibrantly? And that just opened up, this incredible space that we're in now, where, to live vibrantly means to really live life to the absolute fullest, right? To live a full life and really, I picture the world like a lemon, and you just want to squeeze every last drop out of it. And so when we interview people, we're trying to uncover, what's the last book you read? What's the last thing you learned that really, really excited you? Tell me about a recent adventure that you went on. Tell me about a time where you were showing up, quite boldly in the world, or encouraged someone else to do the same. These are ways of evidencing someone who kind of flies the same banner of living a vibrant life. And that's quite exciting from a culture point of view. And we've recently supplemented this as well with our start of a Life Skills Academy, where the aim of it is to just elevate quality of life for everyone in the company, totally independent of skill sets required for working at Chilango. These are skill sets required to just be a great human and to reach your fullest potential, which again goes back to living a vibrant life.
But tell us about that a bit. That's a Chilango-owned academy, you say?
Yeah, so what we do right now, so everyone is buddied up with someone else. And it includes coursework like Productivity 101, Sleep 101, Willpower, Motivation, Habit Formation, Self-Care, Nutrition, Overcoming Procrastination, Overcoming Perfectionism, Becoming Anti-Fragile. But guess what? Everyone loves it.
Oh, of course, I bet.
And the simple thought is that, wouldn't it be awesome if the person who comes to work here at age 18 thinking that's going to be the typical transient kind of stepping stone job, two things could happen, equally wonderful. So one is they stay on, and what was going to be a stepping stone becomes a career, and they think, oh my God, this company surprised me in such a way, and it literally improved my life, and I'm living a more full life now as a result. Or they leave, which is fine too, but they reflect back and they go, man, that time at Chilango, I thought I was getting a job at a burrito company, and I became a more productive person. I don't procrastinate, a lot more excited about life. They take away things that, again, they never would have anticipated.
You once said to me that one of the things you do with the notion of vibrancy, it sounded like you personally do and have had to do, is to over-communicate it. I remember was the phrase you used. Is that still the case? I mean, does that never stop because you've always got new people coming in or people forget or whatever? You're still over-communicating it, or is the communication now more sophisticated and subtle as per what you've just explained to us?
Yeah, so that's one of the secrets. And what I mean by the secrets is that I'm a strong believer, and obviously more people should be doing it, but the fact is a minority of companies, I think, do it. And even those that do it, I call it 99% versus 1%. So I think 99% of them will go ahead and figure out what their one-word distillation is. And then it unfortunately sits on a shelf because it's completely worthless unless you do what the 1%ers do. And that's three things. And I've already talked about one. So one is you got to take it like a brush and literally paint it across all the key pillars of the business. Number two, you have to the phrase is over communicate it. What I mean is you talk about it so much that it's almost like you self-indoctrinate. But you talk about it at every opportunity that you can. That's not vibrant. Well, that's very vibrant, or which partner should we go with? They don't seem very vibrant, do they? And if you do that as a leader, then what happens is everyone else starts doing it.
Yeah.
And now everyone just over-communicates vibrancy in the company. And then the last thing you need to do, you need to regularly hunt for misalignments, because it's never perfect, and you'll always walk around, and just using ourselves as an example because it's just easier to talk about it, you always walk around and you'll say, that's not vibrant, or that's not vibrant enough. But that's okay. That's just normal. It's your job to just constantly try to pull things back to the line. That's what we say. The line is vibrant, so you got to constantly pull things back. And so on a quarterly basis, one of the most effective meetings we had with regard to brand alignment was a meeting about food vibrancy, and everyone who joined the meeting was tasked with bringing to the meeting 3 examples of things that weren't vibrant with regards to our food. It could be the packaging, the food itself, how the food was served, how it looked, whatever, with the goal of cutting those things out like cancer, or fixing them.
That's a great discipline. Yeah, you've done that more than once, have you? Yeah. Practicable, isn't it? Rather than sit around talking about the ideal, which is abstract, here is something that by definition is not ideal, that equally by definition we can do something about, by at least stopping it or improving it. I mean, it's an interesting reverse twist way of doing it. We're kind of running short of time, I think, and I just wanted to cover one broad area and then try and link that with the final bit. The broad area is we are witnessing the demise of not just the high street, but retail, and not just retail, but food retail within it. And you appear to be going in the opposite direction. I'm quite interested in talking about why that might be. And then perhaps we could finish with thoughts and observations you might have for others who are in this trade, young ones starting out, whether that's mistakes you've made that we alluded to earlier or other observations. I'm sure people would find that very, very helpful. Maybe the two things are related, but perhaps we could start with what is it that you're doing to Canute-like stop this tidal flow from running you over, and that might include Uber and Deliveroo as part of that strategy. I don't know.
Yeah, so the biggest thing impacting the restaurant sector at the moment is the consumer demand for convenience. So that's coming in the form of ordering ahead and then just walking in and grabbing the food and not necessarily seeing it made in front of you, and then home delivery. And similar to what Amazon has done for consumers across a range of sectors, this is now happening in food. And we're super well positioned for a couple of reasons. So one, burritos were born onto the world as a delivery product. In the north of Mexico, families would put food, lean meats and veg in a tortilla and hand it over to one of the workers in the family who'd consume it hours and miles later in a field somewhere. So with the dawn of delivery here, was sort of like returning the product to its roots.
Yeah, great, yeah.
And as delivery is booming, so do ourselves, because burritos, again, are well positioned for this segment. They deliver super, super well. And they also hold their heat if you order ahead, so it's sitting there waiting for you at the restaurant. It doesn't lose anything. And then within the space, because of all these investments in food quality and because of the brand recognition that we have within the burrito segment, we command the highest premiums in terms of pricing power. And yeah, I'd say that's the biggest thing. And thankfully, because of some decisions that we made in the past about brand and quality, we're experiencing literally the best results we've ever had since we've opened right now, in the midst of all the chaos that's everyone else is experiencing. So So very grateful for that. In terms of advice for someone looking to start, I really believe product, then brand is the way to go. You have to have a great product, a great tasting product if it's food, a great functioning product if it's a piece of software. The product needs to be stellar.
Absolutely.
And then once you're up and going for a while, and I think you need a little bit of time, because as I said before, the brand, it's a discovery process rather than a creation process. And the reason you need time is you need time for the group to work together, for things to germinate, and for there to be something to discover. And that happens through time. And then, obviously get you in to do the harvest.
But of course, it goes without saying. But do you think that then for startups in particular, it's quite hard, isn't it, in the very early days for them to be crystal clear about the brand? I mean, what you're suggesting, and my experience actually would back that up too. I think one can have a notion of it.
I think you can have a notion.
Yeah, have a good attempt. But
I think you can. You need allegiance to brand attributes, such as, are you about quality or price?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. But very basic things like that.
And then grow into it.
Yeah, and then it will happen. And
if you keep searching.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'd say is, I think entrepreneurship is super glorified. And it's really hard work. I mean, it will nearly kill you. If you read a book called Mastery, same title, written by two different authors. So Robert Greene wrote a book called Mastery, and George Leonard wrote a book called Mastery. And that's what it's about. It's about being able to put your head down for a long period of time and keep plugging away. And a decade will pass, and then things will start, looking good and making more sense. And a matrix kind of develops in your head where you're suddenly able to connect, various ideas and thoughts from one industry or another, and kind of form your own way of thinking. But that mastery is a key element. And a last thing would just be resilience. There's a great Japanese proverb: fall down 7 times, stand up 8. And that's what I tell myself, on the days when it's not feeling great.
Well, I'm kind of glad that you've ended up on that note, actually, because in my mind, I was going to say that I've been around the business a while now, and you and Dan managed to talk about it and deliver a product in such a way that makes it look easy and fun and vibrant, and this is all a great laugh. Let's all be part of it. But I've also seen the other side. I mean, I remember the early days, and since there have been times where it's not been easy. So it's to your credit, actually, that you're not just still sitting here, but also saying what you're saying, because it's not easy, is it?
No.
Far from it.
No.
Especially an operation like this with lots of moving parts.
Yeah.
Very useful and fascinating, interesting. And, this formula that is... I talk about this all the time. Nothing kills a bad product quicker than good fill-in blank. Publicity, brand, advertising. It came from the advertising industry, that saying. And I'm forever saying this to people, especially startups. You've got to get the product right. If you do nothing else, you've got to get the product right.
Yeah.
But then it's wrap it round with the brand, and then have the resilience and determination and be a 1%er.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the kind of...
and stick to it.
Nice, easy 1, 2, 3, isn't it?
Do the 10-year haul.
Yeah. Okay, well done. Thank you, Eric, so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks again, Eric. Please do subscribe to the podcast in your usual podcast app to get new episodes when they're released. If you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. It's robert@robertbeanbranding.com. Thanks for listening.